We have come out here to the lobby here at the Ricoh Arena in Coventry with BAPCO TV, and I'm joined here. We've just whipped him off the stage where he's been following the TCCA track. It is the Spectrum Director from the TCCA. It's Jeppe Jepsen. Thank you very much for joining us. So tell me, you've just been moderating a panel session in there. What were you going on about?
Well, the spectrum for PPDR is very essential, because if you don't have spectrum, you cannot have built radio networks. Yep. And emergency services need radio networks. So for the last 10 years, the TCCA has been lobbying the regulators to actually set spectrum aside in a harmonized way on a global basis. And we have managed to get harmonization on a global basis. Okay. But in most countries, let's be realistic, most countries, they have decided to actually auction the same spectrum off to commercial vendors because it gave a good income to the state. And therefore there is this imbalance between the needs of the emergency services to be in control of their situation. In control meaning that they know exactly when they send people into dangerous situations. Yeah. Can they do that on networks that they are dedicated, meaning dedicated spectrum, or can they do it on commercial-based networks with having the same assurance that they have the connection when they need it? And that's where spectrum is so important, because if you have spectrum, you are in control because you can build what you need. If you don't have spectrum, you have to buy a service with legal constraints on the service that you are requiring. And there are very few countries where the commercial operators is actually willing to sign up to these legal conditions. And therefore, spectrum is an essential part in all of that.
Yeah. Sounds like a real conflict there, you know, particularly when governments can fill their coffers with money from spectrum, and goodness knows here in the UK we've seen that with 3G and 4G spectrums over the last 10 or 15 years or so. So what's the answer then? You know, it sounds like you have managed to get some global agreement. Well done, because that's no small feat in itself. But you know, when we start talking about 6G or whatever, the next round of spectrum auctions, if there is such a thing, then how do you see things being managed better in the context for emergency services?
Well, it will be difficult. For the higher releases of technology will go up in higher frequencies, and therefore you'll need more sites to do a coverage. And there are the three most important things for emergency services is coverage, and coverage, because they need. It happens everywhere. And so therefore, yes, 5G is great, but it will be many years until you have nationwide coverage in the 3.4, 3.8 gigahertz, and even in will never happen. So therefore, the 700 megahertz band, which is the one that is globally harmonized for PPDR, is the coverage band that we should go forward with the technology. And then 6G technology will then also exist on 700 megahertz as it evolves over time. I mean, 4G was the name 2 days ago. Yes. Now it's 5G. 5G will be deployed in 700 megahertz. So it's important to stay in that to have the coverage. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Really interesting stuff, Jeff. I'm afraid that's all the time we've got to give this subject coverage for right now. But thank you very much indeed for your time, and enjoy the rest of the conference stream taking place behind our shoulder. Thank you very much, Jeppe.